If I just may ask you to introduce yourselves for those who may not know in the room, please.
Our meetings with victims and witnesses of the most shocking human rights violations will leave a mark on all of us for the rest of our lives. While we regret that the government of Myanmar chose not to cooperate with us and did not give access to the country, we have a solid body of information that supports every word in our report. The Rohingya are in a continuing situation of severe systemic and institutionalized oppression from birth to death. The cornerstone and symbol of this system is their complete lack of legal status. The human rights violations in Myanmar are fueled by the efforts of the Myanmar authorities to silence critical voices and their amplification of hateful rhetoric that emboldens perpetrators.
The way in which sexual violence has been taking place in Myanmar is particularly brutal, and take it from a former special rapporteur on violence against women. The scale, brutality, and systematic nature of rape and violence indicate that they are part of a deliberate strategy to intimidate, terrorize, or punish the civilian population. They are used as a tactic of war. The interviews with survivors were undertaken in privacy and following strict protocols. Their scarred bodies and their horrific stories, some of which will be reproduced in our detailed report, and their tears will remain with me for many years to come. Children, too, suffered grave violations, including killing and maiming, sexual violence, abduction and detention, especially girls. This level of normalization of sexual violence and of attacks against children is only possible in a climate of long-standing impunity.
Our findings are grim. However, we believe that there is hope for Myanmar. We have undertaken our work with dedication because we believe that establishing the facts is the first stepping stone towards change. The victims of human rights violations have the right to the truth, and so does the people of Myanmar as a whole. Without the truth, Myanmar will not be able to ensure a prosperous and stable future for its people, all its people. Myanmar's transformation into a democratic state has barely begun. It will require 3 major shifts to avoid the repetition of the kind of violence and atrocity crimes we have outlined in our report. The security forces and the Tatmadaw in particular will have to be brought under civilian oversight. All state institutions must be answerable to the people. This may well require a complete reconstitution and vetting of the Tatmadaw. A reconciliation process must be driven by a concept of the state and nation that is inclusive, based on equality and respect for human rights. The linkage between national races, citizenship rights, and human rights must be broken. Lastly, the practice of impunity must be ended. The third shift can be addressed at this time only by the international community, as was laid out earlier. Considering that accountability is currently unattainable domestically in Myanmar, the impetus must come from the international community.
There'll be additional documentation, an additional report that will be made